And we have a very special guest to lecture us tonight and also to close out this two-day forum, and his name is David Singleton, and he's come a very long way from Australia, so he's very grateful for all of you, as am I, to have come here tonight. David is board chairman and non-executive director, from a respected thought leader and expert advisor to governments and global businesses on resilient leadership and practice, specializing in infrastructure, business sustainability, and climate change resilience. Evidence-based, outcome-driven innovation and leadership are at the heart of David's professional and consulting practice. He is currently a member of Swinburne University of Technology Board, a director of Standards Australia Limited, and a director and chairman of the Infrastructure Sustainability Council of Australia. David has worked with the global consultant group ARUP for 41 years and was a director for 33 of those years, holding a series of global and regional leadership roles. He was a director of ARUP Group Limited, the global holding company, from 2001 to 2011, and was responsible for the strategic leadership and growth of ARUP globally, which in this period grew from 3,000 to 10,000 staff. Most recently, he led the firm's planning practice with a particular emphasis on planning for city development, regeneration, and sustainability. So he's uniquely qualified with his global experience over more than three decades to be here to discuss and close out our discussion, at least at this point, of what is a sustainable city, what can we expect out of city developments, how did we get to the situation we are now, where is the good and the bad and the ugly of it all. So David, with that, I'd like to welcome you to this stage.
Thank you, Patrick. I always feel increasingly old as I hear someone read out that that bio, but there you go. I do thank you all for coming along to hear me tonight. I must say I was somewhat concerned that maybe it might be a smaller audience, but that's good. Yeah, so I just retired in August from what I like to think is still, despite others having got a lot bigger, the best consulting firm in the world. Over 40 years, you learn a lot. Probably you don't learn as much as you should as you're going along, because you're too busy. But perhaps in the last couple of years, after I'd stepped down off our global board and before I retired, I had a chance to reflect on what I had learned, and it's not all good. And I think we all have to learn. We will have to be prepared to acknowledge what it is that's good and what it is that's not so good in our experience. But I think you do learn from what you do, and I suppose one of the things I'm seeking to do now in my remaining career is to find ways to share that with people, and not just share it in terms of technical contributions. I guess that's basically what I'm going to be talking to you about tonight, and with a particular focus on cities, but also to share it with respect to how one leads. And it would be fair to say that when I was an up-and-coming young whiz kid, blazing a trail up the ARUP corporate ladder, I had a particular approach to leadership, which it appeared to me was successful, because I got places in a firm that was essentially a building structures firm I got to the Holy of Holies as a transport planner, one of those people that Patrick and Robert and some of his other colleagues despise because of all the terrible things they've done to Canadian cities and North American cities. But anyway, yes, I probably led in a particular sort of take no prisoners kind of a style, and that is no longer the way to lead. And I hope I caught that in time and was able to start to modify my behaviours. But you know, what I have been doing for the last few years while still in ARUP and then after ARUP is getting involved in coaching people about styles of leadership, and hopefully helping some of them who I perhaps recognise their traits as being remarkably similar to my own, and trying to guide them to a different path, because you know it can end in tears if you go down the I'm the hero and I'm the only one who can get us out of here route. Anyway, that's not what you came here to hear about. So I'm privileged to having been an ARUP person for a very long time. I'm actually a UK-born person, but I joined ARUP in Australia 2 years after my graduation. I moved to Australia. And I didn't work on this project, but I guess this is probably the project that most people, one of the projects that most people know ARUP for. It's certainly a Sydney Opera House, for those of you who don't recognise it. It's certainly the project that defined ARUP in Australia, not all of it good. It redefined the relationship between the architect and the engineer, not all of it good. So in a typically sort of ARUPian fashion, it kind of pushed at the boundaries of what had previously been an expected, fairly subservient relationship between engineer and architect. So the story with the Opera House is that the project was going out of control financially, and in the end the New South Wales government, who were the client, decided this could not be sustained, and they I wasn't even working for ARUP when this all happened, so I only know it by sitting at the feet of my elders. The New South Wales government decided they were going to terminate Utson's commission, and I don't know whether there was a conversation about whether, if he mended his ways, the commission could continue. As far as I know, they just decided they were going to terminate it. And they asked ARUP if they would be prepared to continue with the project. Now, like any good secondary consultant, ARUP should have said, no, we will fall on our sword. But ARUP didn't. And ARUP did continue, and ARUP then retained a firm of architects who worked to ARUP to finish the project. Harry Seidler, famous Australian architect, led a very strong protest of most of the Australian architects against ARUP, saying this was not the way to behave. And there's a long story there, but again, you didn't come to hear that. But if you work with ARUP, these are some of the things that kind of enrich your DNA. I had the privilege of leading the infrastructure part of ARUP, so globally. So from 2004 till 2011, for 7 years, I led the infrastructure business. When I took it over, the infrastructure business was 30% of the firm's turnover. When I stood aside, it was 43% of the firm's turnover, a matter which gave me, as a non-building engineer, a whole lot of satisfaction. But we grew the whole firm, We grew the whole firm in that period. We didn't grow infrastructure at the expense of buildings. And infrastructure became and has since then continued to be a fundamental part of what ARUP is all about. And I think one of the things that ARUP's been able to do is to bring to the design of infrastructure the same attention to design that has always been a part of its approach to buildings. And some beautiful infrastructure projects have been delivered. Here, Stonecutters Bridge in Hong Kong. But also there's been an involvement in some significant projects here, high-speed rail from the English Channel to London, and at the moment ARUP's working on High Speed 2, which takes the high-speed rail from London to the north to Birmingham, and then beyond Birmingham to both Leeds and to Manchester. And these are projects that are not just about engineering. These are projects that are about how you interact with communities. There is no way one is going to be able to deliver High Speed 2 from London to the north through the Chilterns, through the Cotswolds. Somebody told me that 47% of the best QCs in London lived in the Chilterns and the Cotswolds, the countryside through which High Speed 2 is going to pass. So, you know, the involvement of ARUP there has been as much about social consultation as it has been about engineering. It's been about using our sound lab, which is a capability that our acoustics people developed over the last 20 years, to create mobile sound labs. So you can actually take a mobile sound lab out into a community and let them hear what it is going to sound like when the train passes through at different distances from them. Very successful. We've even done work in Vancouver. And that picture's been hanging around at the back of the sort of intro slide today, and that's the CCTV headquarters, Rem Koolhaas and ARUP in Beijing. An amazing structure. When you stand near it, you sort of worry about its stability. So, as you can see, even though I'm no longer an employee of ARUP, I'm very proud of the fact that I was. I'm still a consultant to the firm. And to me, it's a special firm because of the way it was founded and because of the way the people who founded it, Ove himself and his other 5 equity partners, decided in 1978 to give the firm to a trust. So they had a firm that in 1978 was turning over £80 million a year in fees in 1978 value, and they gave that firm away to a trust which exists for the current employees of the firm. So if it were ever sold, which I don't believe it ever will be, but if it were, then the process would be divided between the current employees. No longer me, unfortunately. So what that does, though, is that we have a very flat salary. They have a very flat salary structure. So all the members of the group board, of which I was one, are paid the same, with, you know, adjustments for cost of living in different countries. You know, the CEO, which we don't call the CEO, we call the group chairman, is paid exactly the same as the other members of the group board. And there are no real financial levers that would influence the way the leadership of the firm behaves. And that has some downsides. You know, there isn't the intense scrutiny of financial performance that exists in some other listed companies. And occasionally one can sense there are some people in the leadership who aren't giving enough attention to financial performance. But by and large, I think it works for us. it works for us in a whole host of ways. One of the ways is that for a long time we've been able to sustain an approach to the sustainability of our work. If I've intrigued you about ARUP and you didn't know about it before, if you go to the website arup.com, you can read a copy of something called the Key Speech, which is something that Ove wrote and gave to the global leadership in 1970 when he was 82. That speech is 30-something pages long. I have a copy of it in his original handwriting, very nice bound edition. And in there he describes this philosophy about a whole lot of stuff, and he says things, amongst other things, about sustainability. So there's been a long history of an approach to sustainability, but there wasn't a clear commitment to it. And you know, it was interesting. So I'd been on the group board was created in 2001 when the Australian practice, which I was leading, merged with the UK practice to create what is now referred to as ARUP Group. So I then joined something that was called the group board. And around about 2003-04, I was asked by the then chairman of the firm if I would take a role in leading our position around sustainability, because increasingly we had little pockets of people around the world who were offering sustainability advice as a service to clients. And we didn't really know what that meant, and we didn't really know where it could go, and there were some who thought it might go to slightly worrying places. So anyway, I got involved with that and spent around about 7 years in that, and during the time we developed policy and we developed a strategy, and we've successfully updated that over time. But we also spent a lot of time thinking about, so what does this mean for us as a firm? And ARUP is the sort of firm where, you know, if you sit down and have a conversation with the leadership or with the graduates in an office, or, you know, whatever group it may be, you will always get involved in a very rich conversation. And we actually ran a global survey to see where people thought we were on the sustainability topic. And it was very, very clear that there was no, we weren't as of one on this topic. And maybe it's the nature of a conversation around sustainability that you won't be, but it does potentially get you into some rather complex situations. So, you know, we felt it was important to be clearer about where we were and what we stood for, which is why we developed a policy, which is published on our website, and it's why we developed a strategy, which is not published on our website, but which is something that all parts of the firm act by. And they've been interpreted slightly differently in the 5 geographic regions within which we operate. So the Chinese version is not only in Chinese, but it's also got some slightly different interpretations to suit the environment it's in.